we're going to move on to the third round of the draft, third round and beyond, basically. So we're going to take this position by position. Not going to spend a lot of time on every position, but we're going to go through kind of our guys in this draft who we like in the third round, maybe and beyond, sleepers and stuff like that. Guys who we can see the Dolphins can see wearing the aqua and orange next year, who we wouldn't necessarily draft in the first or second round. We're going to start off with quarterback here. So, Josh, I know you have one guy on your list at quarterback, two guys on your list at quarterback for the third round. Do tell.
Yeah, so just a recap, right? So we're going to cover the third round, just like you said, Keith. We're going to cover the third round, but position by position. Then we're going to go into potential sleepers. So for me, I have two quarterbacks ranked as third round prospects. I have, as we talked about on the last show, I am a massive nerd. I created my own scoring and Miami Dolphins fit calculation algorithm to grade players based on a bunch of stuff that nobody that's listening gives a shit about. So I can tell you this. I have Jalen Milrose and Will Howard. Jalen Milrose out of Alabama, Will Howard out of Ohio State, rated for me as third-round players. Neither of them have a very high fit to Miami score whatsoever. Out of 400, Jalen Milrose has a 27.3 and Will Howard has a 3.9. So, not great in our scheme, but they are worth mentioning. This is not an indication that I think they are bad quarterbacks in general. I don't think they're great quarterbacks, but I don't think they're bad. I can see a scenario in which Will Howard goes in the first round, right? There are a few teams, aka the one that has Chip Kelly, right?
Yeah.
And they happen to need a quarterback, right? And unless they trade up, they're going to have slim picking. So I can see a scenario where I have a player rated in the third round where a quarterback needy team takes him in the first. He's got talent. I don't know. I have Jalen Hurts as my Jalen Milrose kind of player comp, and I have Nick Foles as my Will Howard, right? So I'm not super. I hope Miami does not end up with either of these guys, but I won't cry myself to bed if we do.
Josh, I understand the comparison between Jalen Milroe and Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
There's a comparison to be made between those two guys, but I think it's a dangerous comparison when it comes
of course
to
it is.
Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, it's mainly just a dual threat quarterback, right?
Yeah. I'm not as big a fan of Jalen Milroe. I have like a late third, early fourth round grade on him.
Same here.
And to be fair, I didn't have as high a grade on Jalen Hurts either. Like I had a third or fourth round grade on him. Eagles took him in the second round, and really, I mean that Carson Wentz, was looking over his shoulder at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Hurts, to his credit, took the bull by the horns, grabbed that Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback position, made it his own, and now he's the reigning Super Bowl champion. So,
yeah, well, all right. I'm not a big fan of Jalen Hurts either. So,
well,
I think he's a glorified running back that's a game manager at the quarterback position, which is fine. I mean, hey, I'm not sliding him in any capacity. I just don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in this league, like everyone says he is. I don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have agreed with you before this season, but now, I mean, he's made a believer out of me.
When you have the the best offensive line in the league for your entire career, and you have the weapons that he has around him, and you have Saquon Barkley, and until he got, I mean, I'm sorry, like you don't have to be good. You just don't screw up.
Yeah, fair enough. So Taylor, what kind of third round grades do you have on quarterbacks here?
Eagles fans in the comments, you want to address Aqua Ace or Josh. Just want to point that out there.
Bring it.
Just to talk about Jalen Milroe for a second. He's not on my list, but that's because I have a second round grade on Milroe. I like a lot of the traits he has. He is not a fit for this system whatsoever. He's the opposite of this system, but he is a freakish athlete. 99th percentile in terms of the 40 time. He has a military background. He's noted as a high character guy as well. He had 20 rushing touchdowns in 2024. Love the arm. I do think he struggles a bit when it comes to the pre-snap stuff. when it comes to, the blocking assignments and progressions and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's like a lack of like skill. I think it's just experience. You got to play it to actually learn and get better. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. I don't have him on the Dolphins' radar. The only quarterbacks I have as third round picks, I have Kyle McCord from Syracuse as a second to third round grade, Jackson Dart as a second to third round grade, Will Howard as a third to fourth round grade, and I wouldn't take any of these players in round 3. And also, I think there's a good chance that 2 out of 3 of them aren't there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know where Jalen Milroe is going to go, but I think there's going to be a team that's going to reach on him in the second round. I do.
I do too. The problem is he's not accurate, right?
Yeah.
And the short and intermediate. He's got a cannon for an arm, and he's an insane athlete, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the next position here, running back. And now I'm going to tell you guys the guy that I love in the third round, first and foremost, Bo Scatterbo. Love him in the third round. I think he's a great third round pick. I think he'd be a great fit for what the Dolphins want to do. Taylor, I'm going to start with you. I don't know what kind of grade you have on Bo Scatterbo, but I know you have third round grades on a few running backs here. Give them to me.
I have Scatterbo. I think I talked about him last week, but I have him as my 33rd overall player.
Ooh,
the third running back on the board. In terms of the third round running backs who I think could be available, but I guess I'll say like the third round running backs I have graded. Caleb Johnson from Iowa, I have a second to third round grade. Damian Martinez from Miami, I have a second to third round grade. My note on Martinez is I don't have many guarantees for players in this draft. I will make one guarantee. Damian Martinez is a future Angry Runs winner. Some week in 2025, maybe 2026, he will win that award. Brashard Smith, the running back from SMU, I have a third round grade. And Kyle Monangai from Rutgers, I also have a third round grade. I think Martinez is a shoe-in fit for that power back role in Miami.
Yes,
I love that. Monangai as well. He runs so hard. He reminds me of Isaiah Pacheco. And I don't really want to get into it right now. This might be something we talk about like during our draft episodes. But Brashard Smith reminds me so much of Devon Achane. And I know we don't need it. But what's better than one Devon Achane? 2 of them. So I wanted to shout that out.
I love Damian Martinez. I love Damian Martinez. I love the way he runs. He's got some Marshawn Lynch in him. That's kind of when I look at him, I see a guy who just refuses to go down sometimes. So I like that. And Monangai, his brother actually played in the NFL too. His brother spent some time with the Eagles in their camp. So there are some bloodlines there. I like Monangai as well.
Yeah.
Josh, what do you think about these running backs here?
Yeah, so for Damian Martinez, I have him as a fourth round player, right? And my player comp just because is AJ Dillon. I would absolutely love him on this roster. This is why I like. This is why I love these shows, right? When we get to compare players that we have and where we have them ranked, because none of the players that Taylor said are on my round 3 list. And I absolutely love it. I love it, right? Because we want there to be differences of opinions. I have 4 running backs graded as third round backs. I have Devin Neal out of Kansas. I have Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. I have Jordan James out of Oregon, and I have RJ Harvey out of UCF. I only have one player that I like for Miami in the third round, and that's Devin Neal out of Kansas. Has an all-purpose back.
Can you get into that though? Because I'm very curious. Because Devin Neal, the thing that really got me was the lack of top-end speed.
Yep.
Granted, you watched the Colorado game, and
that's the game I watched when I was like,
he killed Colorado single-handedly. What he had, 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, or something like that.
Yep.
So
I don't know. I compared him. My player comp for him is Devontae Booker, right? So all-purpose type back. He's got some power. He lacks speed, but breakaway speed, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I think I have him rated as my 86th overall player. Again, not super high on the fit score, on my Dolphins fit score. So I'm not like advocating pounding the table that in round 3 we have to take a running back and it has to be Devin Neal. But, I do like the player. I like the skill set that he brings. I think it adds something that this room, at least what we know about this room, doesn't currently have. Now, we don't know what Wright looks like with all of the weight that he's put on. And I mean, we saw the social media post. The dude looks like a model. He's put on some serious weight in a pro NFL room. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe we have the power back on our roster already, right?
Yeah.
But those are the 4 players that I'm a big fan of in round 3 at least.
And it does. We should point out here that we just went over quarterback and running back. These 2 positions are positions that we're not likely to take in the first 3 rounds.
Right.
So let's move on to a position that we could take in the first 3 rounds here. Wide receiver. So Josh, I started with Taylor last time. Josh, I'll start with you on this one. Give me some third round wide receivers.
Yeah, I have 5 of them in my top 100. Right. Jaden Higgins out of Ohio State is my number 3 rated wide receiver in this draft so far. Jalen Royals out of Utah State. Isaiah Bond out of Texas, of Alabama. Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech, and I can never pronounce it.
Manor.
Thank you. Humanor or whatever out of Stanford. From a Miami Dolphins fit standpoint, Jaden Higgins, I absolutely am in love with.
Yeah.
Absolutely enamored with. Michael Pittman Jr.
Well, Josh. How are the turntables? Last week on the show, you said, I don't even have him in my top 100.
I didn't.
I was dumbstruck.
I really didn't. He wasn't even. He was 100. So because I do my top 200, and he was ranked 115, I think. So he made it just outside my top 100. And so after the table got banged and I got ridiculed for not having him in my top 100, I went back and watched every game of his last year, and quickly put him as number 3 in the wide receiver positional rankings and number 32 overall.
So wait, who are your 1 and 2 then, Josh?
Tech McMillan and the guy from Texas. I'm blanking on his name.
Golden. Matthew Golden. So where do you have like Luther Burden? Where do you have Emeka Egbuka? Like where do you have those guys ranked?
Well, let me tell you. Hold on. Unless I just totally screwed that up and that's not really where he's ranked. Hang tight.
Well, Josh is doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. Last week when he was talking about
Jaden
Higgins, I was like, I couldn't even sleep that night.
All right, here's my overall rankings for the wide receiver room. Tet McMillan, number 1, ranked 12th overall. Matthew Golden is number 2, ranked 25th overall. Jaden Higgins is number 3, 32 overall. Egbuka out of Ohio State is 4, ranked 34th overall in my top 100. Yeah. Jack Besh is next at 45. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss is 47th overall. Luther Burden III out of Missouri is number 50 overall. Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals, Isaiah Bond, Jalen Lane, Elika Numenor.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was wondering where those guys, like, if you ranked Higgins 3rd, like, where the other 2 guys rank?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I totally pooped the bed on that Higgins evaluation early on. I watched his film. That dude is a menace to society.
Yeah. I think he's going to be really good. He could sneak into the back half of the first round in my opinion.
I could easily see that. I gave him a 3rd round grade, right? Because I really do, coming out of not a smaller school, but Iowa State, not known for playing really huge competition in my opinion, right? But his measurables and his skill set.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right.
Push it into my veins.
All right, Taylor. Who do you have 3rd round grades on a wide receiver?
All right, I'm going to start with Jalen Royals, the wide receiver from Utah State. He is my 65th best player on my big board. Then I have Luther Burden III from Missouri, Jalen Noel from Iowa State, the teammate of Jaden Higgins. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Royals and Burden, I have a 2nd, 3rd round grades for Noel, I have a third round grade. Xavier Restrepo from Miami, I have a third round grade. We will get into it. That 40 times scared the hell out of me.
Yes, that's why that's why I
Savion
give him a
Williams.
5th round. Yep.
Yeah. Savion Williams, the wide receiver / running back from TCU, and Alec Ayamainer from Stanford, who is a 3rd / 4th round grade for me. Out of that group, I really like Jalen Royals for Miami, as well as Xavier Restrepo and Savion Williams. The latter of which is who I kind of want to get into. If you guys are down
go for it.
So he's 6'5". He reminds me a lot of Mike Williams as a receiver in terms of he has some concentration drops, but man, is he great in contested situations. But he's also explosive enough to where they line him up in Wildcat as a running back.
Yeah.
In a creative offense, I really love that potential, In that Mike McDaniel scheme, I think he would thrive. Restrepo to a lesser extent, because I think he's a slot-only guy. He's the ideal slot to me, but he is the opposite in terms of what we have on the roster because he's slow as hell. And Jalen Royals
that 40 time was like,
yeah,
that was worse than bad, dude. He ran like a 4.8?
Yeah,
4.9.
Nearly a 4.9
as a slot receiver.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's a brutal.
Granted, there's been receivers that have succeeded in the past. Jarvis Landry, I think Wes Welker, Edelman.
Jarvis Landry ran like a 4.7 or 4.6 or something like that. 4.9.
That's a huge. That's half a second.
Armand Membu ran a 4.9.
Put that into perspective. That's nope. He's an undrafted player in my opinion now. Thanks, Keith.
But yeah, Jalen Royals is the last one, and honestly, I don't get why he's not talked about more.
Who's your player comp on him?
Let me look it up.
I have Gabe Davis.
Okay.
I have Malachi Corley.
Same. 6'1", right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on to our next position here, tight end. Yeah, this is a position the Dolphins could potentially go in the 3rd round. Again, even wide receiver, I don't know that I would full-throatedly support them going any of these positions because we're going to get into positions of actual, real, cogent need.
Unless we trade Hill. I think if we trade Hill, it opens up I'm not saying it's a 1st-round need, but
yeah. But tight ends, who do you have 3rd-round grades on here, Taylor?
Got Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green, a 2nd and 3rd round grade.
Yeah.
Elijah Arroyo from Miami, 2nd, 3rd round grade.
Yep.
And Gunnar Helm from Texas, I have a 3rd to 4th round grade. Fannin and Helm, I have as fits from Miami. Fannin is one of those players that I think he plays not as tough as a Tyler Warren. I love the physicality on film. I really do. And his production was off the charts last season. He was the only wide receiver. When you look at the stats, you're like, oh, so he's the only wide receiver they had on the roster.
Yeah.
Because it's just – go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of his. And you mentioned Elijah Arroyo, and I like him too.
I do too. I think he's an amazing fit for Miami.
Yeah, I do too. So Josh, tell me your guys who have 3rd round.
Yeah, so Elijah I have as a 4th round player, so he's not on my list. I have 2 of the ones that were mentioned by Taylor in Gunnar and Harold. The other one that I have here is Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. Kind of that Gerald Everett type, athletic type to tight end, I don't really have a high kind of Dolphins fit grade on any 3 of these guys. I think my tight ends in my top 100 were either the 1st round guys that were high Miami fits or the 4th or 5th round guys that I have that were like the Arroyos and stuff like that.
So you have Arroyo as like a 4th or 5th round grade?
Yep. I think I have them as a borderline in between a 4th and a 5th.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's not a slight on him. I just think they're better players.
And to get it out there, I haven't seen Ferguson yet, so
Yeah.
The tight end room is probably the one that I've got the least amount of players on.
Same.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to move on to the offensive line. I know that you guys have. I know you guys have to have some players that you have third,
Nope,
fourth.
none, zero.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just for that, I'm going to start with you, Josh.
Taylor, take it away. No, I'm kidding. Oh, so I have 5 players that are ranked third round that I have a relatively high grade on a few of 4 from a Miami standpoint. So kind of top of the list in round 3 for me is Ariante Irsay, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota. Kind of reminds me of like that power left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr.-esque type player. Not saying we need him. We don't necessarily need a tackle, but hey, let's make the trenches as strong as you can. And if we can move things around, we will, right? The next guy I have on my list out of Texas is Cameron Williams. Kind of is that massive right tackle, kind of Trent Brown vibe, if you will. Both of those players, I have a relatively high, it's not very high, but a decently high kind of fit for Miami score on. Marcus Mbow, the offensive guard out of Purdue, kind of that Gabe Jackson starting guard, or kind of that strong starting guard. He's the one that I have the highest Dolphins grade on in round 3. I actually am a big fan of his. Nope. I do have a high grade on him. I was looking at the wrong line. Charles Grant out of William and Mary is the guy that I have the highest grade on from a Miami Dolphins standpoint. And I have him as a borderline round 2 player. So I put him in my round 3 just to give me a couple of extra names to talk about. And then to round out my list is Anthony Belton out of NC State, offensive tackle, kind of that Mekhi Becton type player.
I'm a fan of Charles Grant.
Me too.
His small school, small school roots aside, I think with some seasoning, he could become a really good player in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't have it listed here, but when I watched the film on Grant, I know he's a decent. I mean, he's a pretty good tackle, but I have interior offensive line vibes when I watch him play. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's where he'll play. I'm sure a team will be enamored with him and will probably take him in round 2 if I had to guess, early in round 2. So to play offensive tackle, whether it's on the right or the left. But yeah, I like him. I would love him on this team. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, but I like him as a guard. I don't like him as a tackle.
Same.
Taylor, and what offensive lineman do you have?
All right, so this is offensive lineman, not just tackles, right?
Yeah, go full offensive line. Yeah.
Okay. Ariante Irsay, I have a second round grade on. Cam Williams, I think I also had a second round grade on. Do you name anybody else other than Charles Grant?
Marcus Mbow and Anthony Belton.
Okay, so Belton I haven't gotten to yet. I think he's next up on my list.
You'll like him. You will like
Marcus.
him.
Marcus Bowe, I think I talked about last week as a second round pick. In terms of who I have on my list here, Charles Grant, get that out of the way. He is explosive as hell. If we had a tackle need, I could see the Dolphins drafting him and putting him at tackle. Like I think we're one of the few teams that I think would be like, we'll try him here, Yeah. Tate Ratledge and Wyatt Milam are the other two, and I like
Tate
the
Ratledge
fits.
is a good one. Yeah.
So
with Ratledge,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say with Ratledge, I think you're getting some leadership there. He's a seasoned player. The only thing I really didn't like about him, I think he did improve quite a bit over the years, but he does have this weird like shoulder charge thing he does sometimes, and it just knocks him off balance. And I just don't understand why he keeps doing it.
That can be coached out of him. I mean, good offensive line coach, a Butch Berry will most definitely coach that out of him. Should he go to the Dolphins? But Wyatt Milam is actually one of my favorite players in this draft. I love the way this guy plays. He's a mean, nasty blocker. Tell us a little bit more about him, Taylor.
So I think one of the reasons I might have him graded a little lower is because my first impression of him was against Penn State.
Oh, no, that was not a good game. That was not a good game for him.
That wasn't a good game for anybody on West Virginia.
You know who it was a great game for? Abdul Carter.
Sure was.
that was one of the games that
Hall
really
of Famer.
Him. Yeah, Hall of Fame performance there by Abdul Carter. And Wyatt Milam looked lost for a lot of that game. But why
I think you're being
getting,
too kind. He was lost on it. He might have been still on the bus.
Yeah.
yeah, might have,
Yeah.
but he showed a lot of his shortcomings there, in terms of quickness and dealing with somebody who has several ways to win. He does have some quality strengths, and I think one of those quality strengths is that dog mentality that I think you really want to see in an offensive lineman. He plays through the whistle. I know we talked about Savanaia last week and how he's one of those players. Milam's right there with him. He is willing to go.
So if memory serves me correctly, Milan played right tackle in that game, right? Where Jalen Carter ate his lunch.
I cannot remember.
Abdul-
He might have played,
Abdul
I think he
Carter.
played left.
Abdul Carter, yeah, sorry.
I think it was left. I think it was on the left side.
Yeah.
Well, either way, Wyatt Milam is another one of those dudes where you move him inside. Like he does have quickness issues. I agree with you, Taylor. He did the quickness issues, and they are going to persist. They're going to persist in the NFL. With a guy like that, you put him into a box.
Phone booth. Yep.
Yeah, you put him into a phone booth and you let him beat up his opponent. And that's exactly what he'll do if you put him at guard. Like if you put him at right guard, like, man, like this guy has, this guy has all pro potential at right guard. I see
Okay,
it.
I don't think I wouldn't go that far, but I do like him. Now Savanaia, that dude is got all pro written all over him at the guard position.
All right. Well,
that was a round 2 guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I did want to throw out my pro comp for Wyatt Milam.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna sound like a shot, but I think he's a lot like Trevor Penning, who plays for New Orleans. But if you remember back in the day when Trevor Penning was coming out, a lot of people were talking about like, oh man, this guy's a dog. He plays through the whistle. But he kind of was like over that line to where you're like, all right, man, maybe you should dial it back. This is the line. Like, this is what we wanted to see from Trevor Penning.
Yeah.
Like, Wyatt Milam is exactly what I think people wanted from him.
Yeah, he's got a nasty streak to him that you want for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of thing can be contagious along the offensive line. So
Milam just has that control to him that I don't think Penning really had.
Yeah. So